Hello everyone and welcome to my updated melee training guide. Over the last couple of years, there's actually been some significant updates to how you train melee in old school. There are faster ways, there are modern ways, and today we're going to be detailing a lot of the new methods. Training a melee combat stats up is probably one of the most important things any new account wants to do, because it allows you to take on stronger and stronger monsters, make money, complete quests, and generally progress your account. Now, when it comes to melee training, your experience per hour is almost always based on how much damage you deal. Regardless of the monster you're attacking, beyond a few exceptions, each point of damage you deal will get you 4 experience in the combat style that you're using, and you'll get 1.3 experience in hit points. So if you deal 10 damage, you're going to get 40 attack experience and 13 hit points experience. That's all to say though that to train melee combat effectively, you essentially just have to deal more damage as consistently as possible. Now, unlike other skills, melee combat is divided into 3 skills. You have attack, strength, and defense, and there are even other supporting skills that affect it as well, like prayer. Now, each of the 3 melee combat skills does serve a different purpose. Strength determines the highest damage that you can hit, and is usually the most important style to level for melee training. Attack determines the accuracy of your hit, which makes it incredibly important, but also it's required for equipping higher level weapons, which makes it a necessity to get better gear. Leveling defense increases the chance that an enemy attack will miss, which is not as important for training purposes because generally you're fighting weaker monsters anyway, but it's still important to level as most equipment and armor have defense level requirements. Now, as I mentioned, to get the best experience rates, you need to deal the most damage, and there are 4 main ways to increase your damage in old school. The first and most powerful one is simply leveling up your combat stats. Now, that's what you're here to do. You're going to do it passively over time, and not only is this one of the strongest ways to deal more damage, it's also the cheapest as well. Now, you want to level your 3 combat stats in tandem, but generally the order you want to prioritize is strength first, then attack, and then defense. That's because strength is by far the most important, as it physically increases the highest hit that you can achieve. And since we're attacking lower level monsters usually while we're training, accuracy is not nearly as important. People have a whole host of different methodologies on exactly level by level which way to go, but generally if you're going in this order, you'll be pretty efficient. Now, the next most common way to increase your damage is getting better weapons and armor. It can be pretty daunting looking at all the expensive gear options out there, but you don't really need expensive gear to get effective training rates. Weapons are by far the most important upgrade, and armor upgrades are much less vital. So really you just need to focus on getting a good weapon, and the armor is kind of secondary. And the final 2 ways to increase your damage are prayers and potions, and we'll talk about those more in the leveling guide. Okay, so you've teleported out of Tutorial Island, you're ready to get melee training. What are you gonna do? You're gonna do quests. I know, your eyes are glazing over right now, but finishing a few important early game quests is by far the most effective way to level your combat stats in the early game. Not only is this like 3 or 4 times quicker than training at low levels conventionally, you also need to finish a lot of these quests anyway to get important upgrades down the line. So you really should start off by questing. The important ones to get done early are Waterfall Quest, Fight Arena, Tree Gnome Village, the Grand Tree, the Holy Grail, Vampire Slayer, and Dragon Slayer. Now, you don't need to finish necessarily all of these, but you should finish enough of these so that your melee combat stats are at least in the 30s. Okay, so now that you've done that right. If you haven't, you gotta go back and do it. I'm not joking. So from roughly levels 35 or 40 onwards, we can start fighting our first actual monster, and that's gonna be killing sand crabs. Sand crabs are an ideal early game training monster because they have a lot of hit points, they don't deal hardly any damage to you, and have very low defenses. It's a perfect combination of a good training monster. So obviously we don't want to punch them with our fists, we can do better than that, so let's buy some gear upgrades. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the weapon is the most important, so whenever you're looking at gear upgrades, start with the weapon, and we're going to start off with either an adamant scimitar or a rune scimitar. If you made it to 40 attack, then you will probably just straight up want to buy the rune scimitar, otherwise the adamant will work for the time being. Other items you can use with very minimal requirements or no requirements are an amulet of glory, which I would recommend just buying right now, a combat bracelet, and some rune boots. You can also buy either a full Adamant set or a full Rune set, depending on your defense levels. So this is an incredibly cheap early game melee combat set. Okay, so let's have a look at some of this gear. Now, gear in RuneScape have a lot of different stat lines on them, but there's only a couple that really matter. Now, for the purpose of combat training, there's really only two important stat lines. That is the melee strength bonus of the weapon or armor, and the attack bonus of either the weapon or armor. So let's just have a look at this rune scimitar here. It has a melee strength bonus of 44, and it has a few different attack bonuses. Now, melee strength is what determines your maximum hit, similar to your strength skill. So the higher the melee strength bonus, the better. That will increase the maximum hit, which above all else is the most important. After that, we have the attack bonus, which determines your accuracy. Now, against something like a sand crab, this hardly matters at all, but it's still worth understanding because later on you will fight monsters with some amount of defense, and it's good to understand. Now, your attack bonus is divided into three categories: stab, slash, and crush. Now, if you come over here to your combat options, you'll see that most weapons will have 3 or 4 options for you to choose from. Now, to keep it very simple, pick the option that coincides with your highest attack stat on the weapon. So on the rune scimitar, the slash attack is by far the highest, so we would come over here, make sure we are choosing a slash setting, and then from there we're going to choose which combat style we want to train. So if we want to train attack, we put it on chop, and it says right there attack experience. If we want strength experience, we'll put it on slash. If we want defense experience, we'll put it on block. Now, for your equipment, once again, melee strength and attack bonus is by far the most important, and the higher number, the better. Now, the most popular place to kill sand crabs is on the southern part of Zaya. However, this place is incredibly crowded, so I would recommend actually killing them on the newly added Varlamore. Varlamore requires the completion of like a 5-minute quest, Children of the Sun. And once you're there, you can just run down to the Sunset Coast, and there are tons and tons of sand crabs here and very little people. Now, sand crabs do very little damage. If you have some armor on, you probably don't need any food at all. It's very simple. You just find a clump of either 2 or 3 of them, run into the middle, and they will automatically start attacking you for the next 10 minutes. Many monsters in RuneScape are aggressive towards you, and sand crabs are no different. Once 10 minutes has passed, you essentially just have to run 30 seconds away to get out of their aggression range, run back, and they'll start attacking you again. Starting at level 40, you'll get roughly around 20k per hour in the combat style you're using, and I'd recommend staying here until you have 55 attack and 55 strength. Now, it's going to take you about 10 hours to get from, early 40s to 55 at sand crabs, and one way you can speed it up is with potions. Now, this is when you could consider using an offensive boosting potion like a super combat potion. Now, they will cost money, but essentially they just boost your combat stats by a significant amount. Now, for the vast majority of combat training, you're going to be killing things that have low defenses anyway, so all you need to really increase your XP per hour is a super strength potion. These are about 5k each and will last you 10 to 20 minutes per potion, so it's really not that expensive per hour. So at the very minimum, I would recommend bringing some super strength potions with you, use them every 5 minutes when you're killing sand crabs. Okay, so once you get to level 55 attack and strength, you can actually switch over to a new combat training weapon, the Glacial Tomato. This weapon is actually significantly better than a rune scimitar, has no requirements to wear beyond the attack level requirement, and is incredibly good for a upcoming training method. This is a two-handed weapon, so you don't even need anything in your offhand slot, and we're going to be using this actually for quite a while potentially. Other upgrades you can consider getting at this point is a Helm of Needesnot, and if you're looking for a cape and have the range and defense level requirement to wear it, you can consider buying a Mixed Tide cape. It actually gives you a strength bonus, so it's a good option before you get a fire cape. Okay, so now we can start with the route I would recommend for most players, and it's changed a lot in the last couple of years. This is the Sulfur Nagua route. So at level 55 with the Glacial Tomato, we actually have the weapon we need to kill probably the most overpowered training monster in the entire game right now, and that is Sulfur Naguas. Now, these were added back with Varlamore Part 1, and they are custom built to be great training because of a very specific mechanic called negative flat armor. It's a little complicated, but essentially every single time you hit the monster, you will get an extra 4 damage added to your hit splat. So if you're low level, your max hit isn't that high, a flat extra 4 damage per hit splat is insanely powerful. And it's juiced up even more because the weapon we just bought, the Glacial Tomato, hits twice every hit. Albeit it hits much lower than most weapons, but against the Sulfur Nagua in particular, that means each hit can be boosted by 4, which is super busted. I'm not joking when I say the difference between sand crabs, what we were just attacking, and the Sulfur Naguas with this new weapon, 3 times faster training straight up, which is insanity. It is so much better. So you want to kill these things as soon as possible. There is one issue though, we have to complete the Perilous Moons quest, and one of the major requirements for that quest is 48 Slayer. Now if you already have 48 Slayer, great, go do this quest right now, but if you don't, this is when I would recommend going and doing some low level Slayer. Slayer in the beginning is quite slow, and if you want you can wait until you're a higher combat level, but I did this kind of recently, and getting from level 1 to 48 Slayer took me roughly around 10 to 15 hours. This is mostly entirely getting tasks from Vanica and a bit of quest experience rewards as well. Now it's not a Slayer guide, but the skills are kind of intertwined, so I'd recommend taking a pit stop, leveling your Slayer up, completing Perilous Moons. It's just that good. Now with 10 to 15 hours of low level Slayer training, that will get you pretty close to 65 attack and strength. And at this point there are quite a few other gear upgrades I would consider getting. Dragon Boots are an amazing upgrade, very cheap, and give a +4 strength bonus, so definitely pick those up. Ideally, you'd also get yourself a fighter torso from Barbarian Assault. If you don't want to do that, you can also pick up an obsidian top and bottom, which will also give you a solid amount of strength bonus as well. Now we are going to be using a 2-handed weapon for most of the remaining training on this route, but you also might want to get a Dragon Scimitar and a Dragon Defender. The Dragon Scimitar is unlocked from Monkey Bandits 1, and the Dragon Defender is unlocked from the Warriors Guild. Both these are insane upgrades, but won't be used for this route, but in the future you will want them. So once you have all of the requirements for Perilous Moons, I would recommend going and starting the quest. Now I kind of lied, you don't actually need to complete this quest to kill Sulfur Naguas, but when I was doing it, they wouldn't respawn until you finish the quest. So you could sit there for 3 or 4 minutes, but then you'd have to leave the room and come back, which is kind of annoying, but the quest itself can be a little difficult to complete because you actually have to beat each of the Perilous Moon bosses, so if you're still not quite up for that, you can still train on this monster, it just won't be quite as AFK. Now besides Perilous Moons and a dual hitting weapon, the only other requirements for this that I would recommend are 43 Prayer and a minimum of 38 Herblore. Now 43 Prayer we want so we can activate Protect from melee and take no damage from the Sulfur Naguas. They're pretty accurate, so just face tanking them doesn't work super well. The Herblore level requirement is an interesting one. There are some unique potions that you can only make in Nepotzel called a Moonlight Potion, and you need a minimum Herblore level requirement of 38 to make these. Now these will act like a prayer potion, but they'll also give you the benefits of combat potions as well. If you have the minimum requirement, you will get an attack, defense, and strength potion, just a regular one. But if you get your Herblore to 55, which I would also recommend, you'll get the benefits of a super attack and super strength potion, which are much better. Alternatively, you could bring your own that you buy in the Grand Exchange, but in the long term, cheaper to get 55 Herblore. So all you have to do is run into the middle of them, put on Protect from melee, auto retaliate, make sure you have your dual hitting weapon, the Glacial Tomato, and go to town. Your XP rates should jump up dramatically. Even at level 55, you can get about 80 to 90k per hour, which is significantly higher. You'll notice they have a special attack that drains your prayer, but it doesn't matter because you have free prayer potions anyway. All you need to do is bring in a pestle and mortar. You walk up to one of these bushes and collect a bunch of these grubs. Grind the grubs down into a paste and add that to some vials of water, which you can get all these things in the dungeon. So I just get a full inventory of Moonlight Potions, and I just fully ignore their mechanics, just drinking a prayer potion when needed. Now going from level 65 to 75 in all 3 combat styles, attack, strength, and defense will take about 25 hours with a Glacial Tomato. This will cost you absolutely no money. In fact, the drops are kind of decent if you pick them up, they're all snackable. And what is even better is you can pick up this thing called Sulphur's Essence, and it's untradeable, and you can hand it in for runecrafting experience, folks. You get passive runecraft training from this method if it wasn't already cracked enough. And this is the method you're going to go all the way to 99 with. There are a few modifications I'd recommend making as you get higher level. Now one thing we haven't mentioned at all is actually offensive prayers. Now when it comes to combat training, prayers are another way to drastically increase your XP per hour. The trade-off though is that they will drain your prayer points, and you would normally have to pay money to have prayer potions to restore them. But we're in the pot still, which means we get access to free prayer potions all the time, which means you can really just use your highest level offensive prayer with no cost. At the minimum, I'd recommend throwing on ultimate strength and incredible reflexes, which increase your attack and strength by 15%. It's not likely you'd have access to piety, but if you do have piety, that's better, of course. Now at 75, there are quite a few gear upgrades we haven't talked about so far. Now one of the bigger ones is the Berserker Ring. This is about a 5 mil item, and you can imbue it at either Nightmare Zone or the PvP Arena to get a ring that gets you 8 strength bonus. It's massive. It does cost a lot of money in the beginning, but by 75, I'd highly recommend having it. At this point, you also might want to consider getting a Fire Cape. This is gated more by your range level and is a whole other topic in and to itself, but a Fire Cape is a big upgrade at this point. And finally, you can actually upgrade your weapon at 75 for this training method in particular to a dual macahuedel. This is the best in slot weapon here, and it will cost 5 mil, which is actually cheaper than it's been, but is a significant upgrade over the Glacial Tomatal. Now additionally, if you really want to bring this method to its absolute peak potential, you need to buy the full Blood Moon set. Altogether, this will cost about 20 mil for the weapon and the set, but it will increase your DPS a further 10%, meaning at level 75, you could get upwards of 140k per hour, which is insane. So this is where it's going to be until 99 in all combat stats, and if you go all the way from 75 to 99 against Sulfur Naguas, it'll take roughly around 200 hours to get attack, strength, and defense to 99. Now, although Sulfur Naguas are pretty low intensity, if you want something that's even lower intensity and very cheap as well, instead you could try the AFK route. This is a low intensity and low cost route that will allow you to take your hands off the keyboard entirely, and is very cheap. Now we're going to follow the same exact starting route as the Nagua route all the way to 55 attack and strength. So from levels 1 to like 35 and 40, you're going to do the same bulk of quests, if you haven't already. And from 40 to 55, you will just be killing sand crabs, which are also incredibly AFK. Now starting at roughly around 55, all the way to 99, we're going to be doing Nightmare Zone. This is a quintessential training method throughout the history of Old School for a good reason. It can allow you to AFK for up to 20 minutes at a time, which is literally the most hands-off method in existence, and can get you up to 100k per hour once you're getting closer to max combat. Now Nightmare Zone is very easy to set up, but there are some quest requirements to do it efficiently. First up, you will need to complete the Freeing the Mountain Dwarf subquest for Recipe for Disaster to get access to the Rock Cake. And you'll also need at least 5 more quests complete. Now the way Nightmare Zone works is it reanimates a dream of a quest NPC, and what we're looking for are monsters that only deal melee damage and can be damaged by melee. So some really easy ones are completing Vampire Slayer, the Depths of Despair, Tree Gnome Village, Lost City, and Mountain Daughter. These will not take very long at all, and you should be good to go. Now there are 3 main gear options I would recommend for Nightmare Zone. First up, you can use the Obsidian Sword or the Toxic Axe with a full set of Obsidian Armor and a Berserker Necklace. This will cost you around 5 mil and is a great option. Another option is once you get to 70 attack, you can wear an Abyssal Whip, but just your best strength gear. That's a good option as well. Or starting at level 75, you can use the Dual Macahuedel. Just use the same gear setup you used for Naguas. It works really well here too. There are even more expensive equipment, but likely you won't be able to afford it. So these are the 3 main ones I'd recommend at a variety of price points. Now there's quite a few different methods to Nightmare Zone, but the one we're going to be using is called the Absorption Pot method. Now the way this method works is it relies on an untradeable potion called an Absorption Potion. Now to get access to this, you'll actually need to do a couple runs of Nightmare Zone first to get some Nightmare Zone points, and then you'll use those points to buy the Absorption Pots. After then, you'll get points passively as you just train your account, so it'd be good to go after that. Now the way the Absorption Pot works is you drink it, and any point of damage that's dealt to you will instead be taken out of the Absorption Pot, and you'll remain alive. So what we do is we use the Rock Cake and guzzle down to 1 hit point. This means we can only take a maximum of 1 damage, which means our Absorption Pot will last a tremendous amount of time longer, and we won't have to bring any food, and we can stay in here for sometimes 3 to 6 hours. So once you got your gear ready, you come over here to Nightmare Zone. You can also use a minigame teleport to get here. We'll talk to Dominic Onion and set up a dream. Now what we're going to set up is a normal rumble. Each time you set one up, you'll have to pay a little bit of money as well, so you'll need to deposit some coins into the demonic coffer. So if this is your first Nightmare Zone run, you're going to take a couple of super combat potions and an inventory of prayer potions. Pick your 5 bosses, start the rumble, run into the center of the room, put on protect from melee, turn on auto retaliate, and just start killing monsters. You'll slowly start building up Nightmare Zone points, and after maybe half an hour, you can just exit the rumble, come over here to the reward chest, and purchase some absorption potions. Now if you want this to be as AFK as possible, I would recommend just bringing 5 super combat potions, but alternatively though, if you want to save some money, you can instead buy overload potions from the shop. The only downside is they will last 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes you'll have to come re-overload, or else your time will be cut short. So once you have your inventory set up, start the dream. Now spam clip the absorption potions until you have 1,000 absorption points, that's the maximum. Come over here to your rock cake, get down to 1 HP, drink a super combat potion, you're good to go. You are now Nightmare Zone training. You can AFK here for up to 20 minutes at a time, although it's probably still recommended to come back every 5 to 10 minutes, drink another dose of super combat, click your rock cake to get back down to 1 HP. Now this can get you up to 100k per hour, which means going from 55 to 99 in all 3 combat stats is going to take you a whopping 400 to 450 hours, which is a long time, but considering you don't have to pay attention hardly at all, the time kind of flies by doing something else on the side, cleaning your apartment, making some pottery. I don't know, you have a lot of time in between clicks here. Now the final route is an active route and is a medium intensity, medium cost. Still not too bad though. This will require you to pay more attention, but will reward you with what is the highest combat experience as reasonably possible, at least at the higher levels. Now you can follow either of the other 2 routes until you get to roughly around level 80 in your attack, strike, and defense. Now you could switch over to a minigame called Pest Control. Thanks to an update that happened a couple years back, Pest Control is now an incredibly competitive combat training method as well. Now what changed is the addition of the combat achievements. By completing the easy, medium, and hard combat achievement, you will get 1, 2, and 3 additional commendation points per game, which actually increases your XP per hour quite a lot. At the higher levels, you can get up to 200k per hour in Pest Control now, which is kind of wild. Now at a minimum, I'd recommend having the medium combat achievement done, as well as 100 combat, meaning your 3 combat stats equal up to 100 combat. If you come over to your combat options, it'll show your combat level. The reason we need 100 combat is to get onto the veteran lander for maximum experience. Now Pest Control is a very simple minigame, and the XP you get from here is going to be through a combination of attacking monsters and gaining combat experience normally, and experience from turning in points. The amount of experience you get from a point you hand in scales with your level, so the higher levels you get, the higher experience per hour you're going to get. And this also scales with the lander you are on, the actual boat you enter the minigame on, and how many tiers of the combat achievements you've also done. There's a great video on Pest Control by T-Poyo, which I'll link in the description if you want a more in-depth look at Pest Control. But the minigame is very simple. Number 1, the most important thing, keep the Void Knight alive in the middle. If there's any monsters attacking him, kill those monsters. Number 2, keep the doors closed to the Void Knight. If you see an open door, close it. And the way the minigame actually ends is by killing the 4 portal spawning monsters around the arena. They'll be shielded to begin with, but their shields will slowly drop over time. So killing an unshielded portal is the next priority. There is a monster called a spinner though that will heal the portal, so if you see one of those, kill that first. And if there's nothing else to do, just kill other monsters around the arena to get more combat experience and protect the Void Knight. After a few minutes, the game will end. You'll get some commendation points based on all the factors we mentioned. At a maximum, you can get over 200 points per hour, which equates to up to 130k just from the points alone. Now once you have points, you'll come over here to the shop, and you'll want to spend the points 100 at a time because you actually get a extra 10% experience for cashing in a lump sum. Now starting at level 80, you can get about 115k XP per hour, but that's going to go up pretty quickly as your levels rise. From 80 to 99, it'll take you roughly 200 hours to get all 3 combat styles to 99, and it's really not going to cost you much at all. Now once you get this late into your melee combat training, there's honestly so many things that give competitive training. For example, taking advantage of Slayer. Either doing Slayer bosses or just killing Slayer monsters can be pretty competitive combat experience. Killing certain bosses can be incredible experience as well, such as Araxor, Cerberus, Tormented Demons. Those are all incredible combat experience. Once you get into the 80s and 90s, you almost don't even have to focus on actively training combat. It just kind of happens. But I thought it was worth mentioning, Slayer and bossing can be an effective training method once your combat level is leveled up substantially. So anyway guys, that's going to be it for today's guide. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what skill guide you would like to see next, and we'll try to get that one done quicker than this one. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.